Hello, everyone. We're just going to give it a few more minutes to let more people hop on. All right. So welcome to our monthly webinar series, Building Native Agriculture, Sowing the Seeds of Growth Through Capacity Building, presented by the Native American Agriculture Fund in association with Chris Roper and Indigenous LLC. Today's topic is agriculture policy. So first, a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions to ask, please do so by using the Zoom Q&A functions. Type your question and we will answer them as we conclude the webinar. We will be sending this PowerPoint presentation, the webinar recording, and a link to register for the next webinar and the follow-up email that comes after to all registrants. And so without further ado, I hope everyone enjoys this excellent presentation. I will now pass it on to Chris Roper.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate everyone that attends our third Thursday series. This month is on agricultural policy, and what a perfect time to bring up this subject. A couple things I want to bring up as we get started. We don't claim to be ag policy experts, but we do try to keep up with policy. We work with a lot of other Indigenous groups and firms to try to compile data. In today's presentation, we're going to show you a lot of various types of policy, a lot of the different initiatives that are ongoing right now, and definitely dive into some specific topics in regards to the Farm Bill. And as we go through the presentation, you're gonna see lots of different notes. And I want to bring light to some of the groups that we use data from and constantly review their data. The first is obviously the Native American Ag Fund. You'll find a lot of data and research on their website, as well as the IAC, the Indian Ag Council, as well as the Native Farm Bill Coalition. The Native Farm Bill Coalition is housed inside of IAC currently. So there's a lot of data on their websites. The Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative out of Fayetteville, they obviously do a lot of research and have a lot of information on their websites as well. You'll see links as we go through the webinar to their sites, and then some of the different reports that we reference. We want to make sure that you all know about those and know about the work that they're doing. We also use some information from Farm Bureau, and some of those literature and links will be posted throughout our webinar today as well. Next slide. Some of our agenda today, we'll go through some of our previous webinars. We've done several in this series now, so we're not posting all of them on our recap, but we do want you to know where to find them. And you can specifically find them on Native American Ag Fund website. We're going to cover some policy 101, kind of go through some of the brief meanings of the ag policy and some of the subjects that you can expect to see. Some of the advocacy, some of that I've mentioned already with some of the various groups. We're going to do some Farm Bill overview, talk about some tribal provisions, some recommendations, and then go through the resources and questions. Next slide. Starting back with our episode 4, if you missed our webinars, please go back and see them. They're on YouTube as well as the Native American Ag Fund website. We've covered labor and training, HACCP and food safety plans, retail and vertical integration, and tribal food and feeding programs. So we've covered a lot of subjects, and we've tried to do these in conjunction with some of the other things that are going on in the market, with grants, with other initiatives that other groups might have, and we definitely all try to work together and feed off of each other as well. So just know that we all do work together, and if you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Next slide. Some of the different types of policies, and talking about policy, one thing I want everyone on the webinar to know, and if you're listening, ag policy and general policy affects everything we do. So, and when we're talking about ag policy inside of a tribe or inside of a tribal organization, it affects most of what we're doing inside tribes. A lot of things you can think about in regards to trade, reform, environmental issues, innovation and research, immigration reform, worker, talk about the different visa programs that some of these bigger facilities are facing, dealing with infrastructure, food security, all these things are affected by policy. Some of the different language you might see, big P we listed as state or federal policies and laws. And an example of that is farm bills, city zoning ordinances, various regulations that you could see passed down from a state or federal government. Some little p policies at the local or organizational level. This could even be tribal policies, city policies, policies by private organizations. One example we listed there was preschool deciding to procure foods from tribal producers. Again, that is a policy. So it's an internal policy at that, but it's still a policy that individuals have effect, and people being involved can steer those decisions. So just being aware sometime of what's going on and making a conscious effort to be involved can definitely steer these policies, to various outcomes. Next slide. The significance of policy, a couple of examples here: tying together agriculture, economics, and society, providing guidance and accountability, and determining how tax dollars are spent. These are all subjects that we should all be following and be aware of. And I want to bring up that if you have issues in your tribal government or in the area where you live, knowing the policy can help advocate for change if you're not happy with it, or if you have a group of people not happy with it. But you have to know what the policy is and know how to go about making changes before you can make any kind of change. You need to know what you're talking about and not just throw rocks, so to speak. We encourage everyone to understand the policy and be involved with the different advocacy groups that are trying to make positive changes in Indian country. There have been a lot of great changes happen over the last several years, and we've seen a lot of changes happen in the last year. There's a lot of updates coming out from USDA today, as a matter of fact, on some of the things that have happened over the last 12 months. But we're also working under the 2018 Farm Bill, and understand that 2018 Farm Bill was signed into act in December, I believe, of 2018. So the term on that is approximately 5 years. So all these different groups that I've been mentioning are working on the 2023 Farm Bill currently. So that's some of what we'll dive into here in just a little bit. Next slide. Advocacy in Indian country. This is really big. And I encourage everyone that's listening and watching today to pay attention to what these groups are doing, participate in what they're doing, and support what they're doing. Native Farm Bill Coalition, established in 2017. You see some of the different groups there that are involved with that. There are many tribes that have written letters of support and resolutions to be a part of that Farm Bill Coalition. It's currently housed inside the Intertribal Agriculture Council. The Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative, again, based out of Fayetteville, Arkansas. They are doing a ton of policy work and are a great resource available to you. Both of these groups are. So please feel free to reach out. If you need contact information for any one of those groups, please put that in the chat. I believe we have some of those groups on our webinar today, so we can share information and share different initiatives that are going on right now. Next slide. One of the goals of the Native Farm Bill Coalition is to advance the policy priorities of Native American producers in the upcoming 2000. Whoa, where'd we go? There we go. to advance the policy priorities of Native American producers in the upcoming 2023 Farm Bill through a strong, united voice. Oh, Lexi Holden, I just saw a chat from Lexi. Thank you for joining us, Lexi. Next slide. Here we go. Some of the Farm Bill titles that we want you all to be aware of. And again, keep in mind, this is the 2018 Farm Bill and titles inside that Farm Bill. So some of the titles inside the Farm Bill consist of commodities, conservation, nutrition, credit, rural development, research, extension, related matters, forestry, energy, horticulture, crop insurance, and miscellaneous. And you can see the chart on the right goes through the funding that was allocated for each one of those different titles. So again, if you're not familiar with the Farm Bill, please take a minute and review that and understand how that affects what you do in your operation, in your tribe, and how it directly affects you. And again, if you have issues or concerns or recommendations, please be a part of the solution and help send your recommendations on to these advocacy groups that are working on the 2023 Farm Bill. So understand where maybe the shortfalls are and know that groups are working on making it better right now. Again, lots of things have changed for the better with the 2018 Farm Bill, and a lot of things are in the works for 2023. Next slide. In the 2018 Farm Bill, there were a total of 63 tribal specific provisions that included focus on tribal parity, access to funding, training and infrastructure, technical assistance and outreach, traditional and native produced foods. And there's a title by title summary of provisions provided by the Native Farm Bill Coalition, Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative, and the University of Arkansas. Please note that we did not want to necessarily pick on provisions that have not been acted upon as of yet. But if you read some of the reports and look at the positive things that have came out of the 18 Farm Bill and the tribal provisions that have been acted upon, you have to understand that change sometimes does take time. And as we think about the provisions that maybe have not been acted upon as of yet, that doesn't mean that there's not action ongoing to make those things happen. As we get farther into the slideshow, we'll bring some light to some of the initiatives that'll be focused on a little more in the 2023 Farm Bill. But just know that even though there may not be action on some provisions today, that does not mean that they're not moving forward. So we need to take the positive momentum that we've had over the last several years, and especially the last year, and try to push over the next few years to make these improvements and make things better. Next slide. Title I Commodities was inclusion in the Supplemental Agricultural Disaster Assistance. Title II Conservation or alternative funding arrangements to support tribal access to conservation programs. Furthering tribal access to conservation programs. And I know we've seen a lot of changes on those. I've seen Title III Trade, increased opportunities and access to overseas markets. Next slide. Title IV Nutrition, supporting tribal self-governance and management of the food distribution program on Indian reservation. Requires USDA to pay 80% of administration costs, requires tribes to match 20% of administration costs, and if able, add regionally grown to the traditional foods provisions. And just know there are a couple of pilot projects going on now that have been funded as part of the 2018 Farm Bill. So there are a few tribes. We obviously want to push to make that greater and bigger. We want to continue to push for regional foods. We want to continue to push for the tribal products to be used in our tribal feeding programs. That's been a big part of our Third Thursday series is, one, we have built capacity tremendously over the last several years, and we want to be able to take that food that we're growing now and produce and get it into our own feeding programs. So it's a big push nationwide. Additional nutrition programs are micro grants for food security, the Gus Schumacher Food and Security Nutrition Incentives. Next slide. Title V credit, improving access to credit for tribal producers. There's been a lot of work on that, and hopefully you all are hearing some of that, hearing some success stories. I know there's still a long way to go on that, but a lot of people doing some good work there. Title VI, rural development, building infrastructure and economic development opportunities. And they created a tribal technical service and assistance office. Tribal priority, inclusion and access to broadband programs and funding opportunities. A lot of you should have heard by now, there's a lot of different grant projects out there for broadband, as well as rural development, economic development. Meat processing is obviously a big subject right now. There is additional funding coming out very soon for meat processing. There's a loan program that you're seeing out right now from rural development, specifically related to meat processing. But I do try to encourage a lot of folks to understand that there will be some other funding coming out here very soon from USDA. Another subtitle under Title VI is a Rural Innovation Stronger Economy Program. Establishes a grant program to create job accelerators and programs in low-income rural areas. Next slide. Title VII, research, inclusion and parity for tribal colleges and universities. Reauthorization of support for TCUs, updating 1994 tribal college list. Creates a Native American Student Scholarship Fund to attend land-grant universities and colleges. One subject I want to hit on that. There are a lot of scholarship funds out, and there are advertisements coming out constantly. So I highly encourage you to get on the email distribution list for NAF for one, Native American Ag Fund. Get on the email distribution list for the Indian Ag Council, Native Farm Bill Coalition, and Indigenous Food and Agriculture Group. They are trying to promote these scholarship opportunities for Native American students, as well as they also will share with you the opportunities that come out of other independent groups so that you can share these with your tribal students. So please be involved and participate, sign up for those email blasts, and just know that you're probably going to get more than you typically want, but at least you can scan them forward on to the people that they can have some effect on. Title VIII is forestry, self-governance and parity for healthy forestry management. A lot of initiatives around forestry right now as well. There's more coming out. We've seen some good updates from USDA over the last few weeks, even on some forestry initiatives. Next slide. Title X was horticulture, legalization of industrial hemp. Tons of webinars on hemp right now. If you have specific hemp questions, let us know. We can direct you to different groups on that, or at least try to connect you with folks that might be able to help you with what you're looking for. Tribal nations can regulate the production of industrial hemp. Local agricultural market program establishes tribal eligibility and local food programs to grow, process, and market native foods. Title XI is crop insurance, underserved producers, includes tribal producers and USDA's review and report of whether crop insurance is providing adequate coverage. Title XII is labeled as miscellaneous, upholding the trust responsibility, and establish a tribal advisory committee at USDA. Next slide. So obviously that was a lot to go through with those last several slides, but that is just really hitting the topics for you. Again, I encourage you all to dive into that Farm Bill and look at some of these publications that we've mentioned already to make sure that you understand what is out there now and help follow the progress. Some of the recommendations for the next farm bill as outlined in the NCAI document that you see off to the right, the farm bill in Indian country. One of the recommendations listed is elevate the Office of Tribal Relations to live fully within USDA's Office of Secretary, create a senior advisor for tribal affairs and USDA rural development, ensure tribal expertise throughout USDA. Again, these are paraphrased on some of these. So, and provide relief to FSA borrowers. Each one of these topics can get very deep and broad. So if you don't understand them or you want to know more, please dive into this publication that's listed here on the right. Next slide. More Farm Bill recommendations, extend purchasing partnership for farmers to families, food box program to include native producers. A lot of great things happening on this, I know right now, but it could be a lot better. I think that's something we should all be pushing for. Allow the food distribution program on Indian reservation sites to procure food locally and regionally using CARES Act and FDIPR funding. Waive the non-federal cost share requirement and allow for administrative flexibilities for verification, certifications, and service in FDIPR. Again, if it were me, I think tribes need to be running that program with tribal food. So we should all be pushing for that. Institute temporary waiver of prohibition on SNAP and FDIPR dual use. Most of you should know now that right now you can only use one or the other. You cannot use both. So this temporary waiver would allow the dual use. Mandate the inclusion of native food products in the FDIPR program. Again, we should all be fighting to have all native foods in this program. The native foods should be feeding native people all across the nation. Next slide. Some of the resources we're listing here specifically, and if you need a link to any one of these, Gabby should be able to help, or you can reach out to Shelby or I, and we can make sure that you get these. We want you all to have the right information. And again, we've listed these resources because these are a lot of the resources that we reference, and these are a lot of the organizations that we work with. So we try to promote what they're doing. This is such a broad area and covers a lot of ground. It takes a lot of people to make change. So again, if there's any specific area that you'd like to dive in with us, or if you want to send us questions, we will definitely get those questions to the right people and get answers for you if we're unable to answer it ourselves. So.
I did want to add right here that I do believe that these documents are all linked. So once you get this, everyone who joined this webinar will get the slides sent to your email, and there, as you go through the slides, you should be able to click on all these links right here. If that doesn't work, then feel free to email us, but they should all be linked in right here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shelby. And again, I just checked. I noticed Lexi put her email and contact information in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to Lexi. I converse with Colby Duran as well at NCAI. Aaron Parker is at the Indigenous Food and Agriculture Group in Arkansas. So please, you have a lot of resources available to you. I mentioned they're free resources. So please reach out, utilize what's available to you. And again, we want to try to get you the information you need. If you have recommendations, please get them to us so that we can get those to the right hands this year. This is a very important year for getting our recommendations drafted for the next farm bill. So once these farm bills get passed, we're going to live with those for 5 years. So we need to take this time to make sure that your voices are heard. Some of the open grants that we want to share with you all, the Farmer and Food Worker Relief Grant Program is due on February 8th. The Rural Business Development Grant is due February 28th. USDA Community Facilities Direct Loan and Grant Program, it's currently open until funding runs out. And again, check grants.gov at least weekly. If you're looking for grants or have projects that you need funded, you need to be looking at grants.gov weekly. You can also send us an email, and we will try to forward opportunities to you as we see them. If we know you're working on a specific project, we will try to at least send you an alert when something comes out. So it never hurts to share the information with us as well. You can email it to myself or Shelby, and we will try to put you on the list for our distribution. Some of the financial resources that are available to you is Native Farmer, Rancher, Fisher Sovereignty Series on Native American Ag Fund website. You can sign up for all their webinars. It's free of charge. You've got business planning. You also have sources of farm financial information. And another one I want to bring up because I hear it regularly as I'm traveling around. There is a webinar coming up in February. It's hosted by Akaton. It's on tax issues, and that should be a really good webinar for your individual producers, farmers, and ranchers. As I've traveled around, I've heard from a lot of tribal farmers and ranchers that they don't necessarily want to take government funding programs because they don't know how it works with their taxes, and they're worried that they will have to pay taxes on it if they're 1099. We need to educate our farmers and ranchers and understand how the tax laws are written and how they work, so that they understand how these 1099s can be treated and how your farm expenses can be treated, and hopefully can increase the usage of these government programs. There's a lot of good money out there, and I know for a fact that there were tribal producers that did not participate in some of these FSA funding programs when they were out last year, and we need to really educate these farmers and ranchers so that we can help them to grow what they have and to be stronger. So, next slide. Some of our upcoming webinars, we have February 17th is food distribution, storage, and logistics. March 17th is regional food models and opportunities. April 21st, lessons learned and best practices for building agriculture. May 19th is building native agriculture overview and action steps. So what we're doing with that very last one is to help maybe cover anything that we might have missed over our series. If you have any topics or subjects that you would like to see or want more information on, please send those to us, and we'll try to work with Native American Ag Fund to have some webinars, or maybe some of the other groups. Again, if one of the other groups that we've mentioned today is having a webinar, we can share that with you. But please, any projects you have that you need assistance on, please reach out and let us know, and we'll try to steer you in the right direction or get you the assistance that you need. Next slide. Here's our contact information. Note these are our cell numbers. So if you do need anything, reach out, call us, email us, and we'll get back to you and try to assist you any way we can. So now we should be ready to take some questions if anyone has questions.
So I'm looking at the question and answer box right now, and I'm currently seeing nothing just yet. We'll wait just a few minutes.
Shelby, was there anything I missed that you think we need to make sure and cover?
I don't think so, but I did see one comment that the links in the presentation weren't working. I did want to just clarify that if you're clicking on the screen right now, it's not going to work, but whenever you get the slides emailed to you later as a PDF, then the link should work in that. But I did see someone reach out that they did already want the links emailed to them, and we'll make sure you get this.
That sounds good. Well, if there's not any questions, I think that's all we have for today. And again, please reach out if you have any questions, comments, or projects that you need assistance on. Please let us know, and we'll be glad to help you.
We did just get one more question in the chat real quick.
Okay.
So Laura Hoffman asks, we are looking at small scale hydroelectric production. There are USDA funds out for that, but who can help us navigate this?
Lori, please send us an email. We'll do a little bit of research on that particular grant, and we might even set up a call with you. We can maybe talk through the grants that you're looking at, and then we could try to help connect you with a grant writer or a group that can help you.
All right, perfect. Then I believe that's everything.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. And if you ever have anything, please let us know.